A man escapes prison after 15 years, then breaks into a house to look for money. He finds a couple in bed, orders the guy out of bed, and ties him to a chair. The escaped prisoner then ties the wife to the bed and jumps on top of her, and it looks like he kissed her, then gets up and goes to the bathroom and closes the door. While he's in the bathroom, the husband whispers over to his wife, "Hey, he's an escaped convict. Look at his clothes. He's probably spent a lot of time in jail and hasn't seen a woman in years. I saw the way he kissed your neck. If he wants anything, don't resist, don't complain, just go with it. Satisfy him no matter what. This guy is obviously dangerous, and if he gets angry, he'll kill us both. Be strong, honey, and I love you." His wife looks at him, smiles, and says, "He wasn't kissing my neck. He was whispering in my ear. He told me that he likes men and thinks you're cute and asked me where the Vaseline was. I told him it was in the bathroom. Be strong, honey, and I love you."
Y'all, I never met anyone who had a back alley dentist like I did growing up. Now, I had an unusual childhood in many ways, like many ways. But one thing that really surprises people is that my dentist, oh God, where do I start? Until I was an adult, I never went to a real dentist, okay? We went to this guy's house. He lived in the middle of freaking nowhere. He had a really rundown, dilapidated, but big house. He seemed like he was constantly high, though I didn't really notice that as a kid. But I hated that he never wore gloves, and I can still remember the taste of his hands in my mouth. He always gave my mom some salmon when she would take me, and he also sold her weed. So like kind of killing 3 birds with 1 stone. His house is literally like a time capsule because everything he owns is so old. Like antenna TVs, old ass radios, everything, and everything is caked in dust. The last time I went was actually as an adult, and it was a disaster. And the x-ray he did for my teeth was on this weird little machine. It printed a photo that he had to actually take to a blackout room. And did I mention that his quote-quote office was under the stairs like Harry Potter's room? I mean...
The first time I felt grief was when my oldest sister left for college in America. I was 9. I remember standing at the doorway peeking through the screen door as my parents loaded the car with her suitcase and she climbed into her seat. Through her tinted glass window, I could see her press up against the glass and wave at me. When the car turned around a corner out of my view, I felt an instant sadness, the type that wells up unexpectedly in your belly and makes you choked up. It confused me, so I turned away from the door to instinctively suppress it. I didn't realize that our housekeeper, who was like a second mother to me, was waiting behind me. She took one look at my face and I burst into tears. I sobbed into her shoulder as she held me tightly and patted my back. As a kid, I could not understand or vocalize why I cried all night or why I felt an emptiness in my heart. Years later, I look back at this exact moment and I feel the grief all over again, except with a deeper understanding that this was the closing of a chapter in my book and I was entering a new one that I wasn't ready for.
Last week I was helping this lady and she asked me if I ever wore mascara. And when I was like, "Oh no, not really," she said, "You know, if you did, it would make your eyelashes look a lot longer." And I kept waiting for her to slip me a Mary Kay card or something, but she never did.
So I have this neighbor who I've never spoken one word to at all. Every time I drive by in my car or when I had only a bicycle, I would ride by, we would just wave towards each other. That's it. That was our whole communication. And today I decided to go get some coffee from the gas station and everything, and I drive by and I see his garage doors open, we wave at each other, and I go get my cup of coffee, and then I also get him a cup of coffee so I can finally meet this guy who I've just been waving to for the past year and a half. I pull into his driveway and this older gentleman, this old man, got up, smile on his face, and I gave him a cup of coffee, and his daughter walks out and she tells me that he actually has autism and his favorite part of the day is when I go to work or I come home from work and we wave at each other. That is his favorite part of the day. That hit me right in the heart. That made me feel so good. So just by a simple act of waving, I made somebody's day.
This is why you should always pay attention to details. A woman was brushing her hair when she found a little bump at the back of her head, so she called her husband to have him check it out for her. He said it looks like a button. It's small, round, hairless, and flat at the top. He joked around it with her, asking, "What do you think would happen if I pressed it?" Then he did, and the woman instantly leaned up and gave him a kiss. Then the husband kept pressing it as a joke, but something went wrong. It seemed like he pressed it all too many times, and a cool numbness spread down the woman's neck, around her arms and her legs. Her eyes automatically shut and her vision vision went black. A while later, the woman woke up and learned that she had fainted. The husband kept apologizing with tears in his eyes as if it was all his fault. Eventually, they both went about their lives and tried to forget about this incident, but the woman just couldn't, because afterwards, she came across a photo of her family in the living room. It was a photo of her and her husband's wedding propped up on a ceramic urn. She looked closer at the photo of her own face. She's smiling as if she's the happiest girl in the world, but there's a small scar under her left eyebrow, a scar that she now didn't have.
Once upon a time, there was a girl who used a helmet to keep her emotions under control. On an especially difficult day, the helmet was filling up faster than ever, but she had to keep it on. She had to. You could take the helmet off, Bub said. But I have it under control, she sighed, gripping her bag strap tighter. Bub snorted. Pushing all your feelings down is a recipe for an explosion. Control isn't sustainable. She then pulled a chicken nugget from her pocket. Maybe you can help me wean myself off this helmet? Bub huffed but accepted the nugget. Let me check my calendar.
Crazy part is, most people believe that these 3 things will actually save your life. They don't. Let's pretend you get stuck in a blizzard on a mountain, and you need to stay warm. So how are you going to do that? You remember hearing somewhere that alcohol is supposed to keep you warm. So you whip out your flask, you take a swig, and sure enough, you feel warm already. You feel flush in the face. But it's an illusion, because what happens is alcohol, it increases blood flow to the skin and away from your core. So it plummets your core temperature, increasing the odds that you'll get hypothermia and die. So you stop drinking booze and you head off for a cave you see in the distance. Once you get inside the cave, you remember that you know how to make a fire. And so you do. Except the problem with fires inside of caves is it starts to expand the rock above you, causing it to crack and eventually caving in on you. So you narrowly escape the cave-in, only to hear something in the background. A grizzly bear was in the cave with you, and now it's charging out to avoid the cave-in. But you remember, humans can outrun bears, and you start taking off thinking, dumb bear, and it just catches you.
The electric chair is perhaps the most painful of all modern execution methods. Let's discuss what it feels like. First, your head will be shaved, and then you'll be strapped to the death device. Electrodes are attached to your head and various parts of your body. A metal cap is secured with a strap under your chin with a sponge wet with saline underneath. Finally, you're blindfolded. Your wretched misery begins when your executioner pulls a lever, sending 1,000 to 2,000 volts of smoldering electricity through your body. Will you feel pain? Yes. This will be the single most painful experience of your life. The electricity is cooking you, frying you up like morning sausage. If you're lucky, your heart will stop beating after the first surge, but it's more common to take several. Your blindfold is meant only to conceal your eyes as they pop out of their sockets. Your clothing will smoke and catch fire, and so will your flesh. You're now damned with burning alive. After the second surge, your body will bloat like a balloon. You'll remain conscious through it all until death occurs, which can take up to 12 minutes. Afterwards, it'll be hours before your autopsy is performed because your body will be too hot to handle.
First video on TikTok of me, so please no mean comments. I'm an only child, and I wanted to jump on the trend of the biggest lie your parents ever told you, and mine's a big one. So when I was a kid, my parents used to tell me to go to my room because they needed to spray for bugs, and all the bugs mainly lived in their bedroom. So I'd go to my room 4 to 5 times a day so they could spray for bugs, and I wasn't allowed to come out until they were done because the bug spray would make me sick and it smelled really bad. So I'd peek my head out the door and be like, hey, can I come out now? Are you guys done? They'd be like, no, just a little bit longer. But I could see them like sneaking in Little Debbie snack cakes and stuff. I'm like, that's weird. Flash forward, 17 years old, going to a party with my friends. It's 11 o'clock at night. I walk inside, never drank, never really smoked, didn't care to. But as soon as I walk into this party, I sniff around and I look at my friend. I'm like, who the hell is spraying for bugs at a party?
Do you know the dark origins behind the fairy tales we all grew up hearing? In this series, I'm gonna draw each fairy tale and tell you the original scary stories they were based on. First, we have the Grimm's version of Snow White. Now, we all know how the story begins. The evil queen was jealous of Snow White's beauty, so she banished her into the woods. But the evil queen actually wanted to eat Snow White's liver and lungs with salt and pepper. The huntsman spared her and gave a boar's liver and lungs to the queen, which she eats. But the darkest part, which you might not know about, is how Snow White actually got revenge. Snow White and the prince got married, and they invited the evil queen queen, or should I say tricked the evil queen into attending because they knew that she'd feel jealous enough to do it. And the evil queen actually fell for it. She arrived at Snow White and the prince's wedding only to find out that they put a pair of iron shoes into burning coals until it heated up and glowed bright red. Then they placed it in front of the evil queen and made her wear those shoes until she danced to her death.
One day at school, my teacher told me that everybody has secrets, so I went home and I told my mom, I know your secret, so she gave me $20 and told me, don't tell your father. So I decided to push my luck and I went up to my dad and I was like, Dad, I know your secret. So he gave me $50 and said, don't tell your mother. I get excited and I go to the store with the money I just got and I see the mailman outside, so I go up to him and I tell him, I know your secret. The mailman says, oh, your mom told you? Come here, son.
My mom has always been the only one in the family that's really good at giving gifts. Almost every year since my sisters and I left for college, she would splurge on a new purse to give to us when we returned home. I've never been the type to appreciate the gifts as much as my sisters did. One year, I brought James back to Taipei and Manila to meet my parents for the first time. Just like my sisters, James loved gifts, and when my mother gave him a beautiful canister of Taiwanese tea, he showered her with gratitude and made tea every morning. So when we got married, she came to the US with her little suitcase packed with an assortment of Taiwanese teas, so that he could enjoy a piece of Taiwan wherever we were in the world. I come from a family that is very expressive and confrontational when emotional, and my husband James comes from quite the opposite. Many of our issues ended up in a similar pattern. I would communicate about every little thing instead of sweeping it under a rug, and he would shut down instead of responding or addressing things. When we moved in together, we had a conversation about how we were taught to work out our problems, and that's when we discovered the root of our issues. My style was very solution-focused and immediate, which to him seemed aggressive, and he needed time to back away and think, which made me feel like he was giving up. So amongst many different ways that we fought, this is one solution which worked for us, where if I was upset about something and we were not coming to an agreement, I would take some time to go to the other room and text him my thoughts. That way he could absorb what I was trying to relate to him without being triggered by the tone of my voice. When he was ready, he'd step back into the room to talk to me about it because I like face-to-face conversations better. And just like that, our fights went from a few hours to a few minutes.
I cut up a bunch of different toy parts and then stuck them back together using epoxy clay and glue to create my own animals, just like in Pokemon, except weirder and more fucked up. And today I'm going to be introducing you to this three-eyed critter called a crot. And although this creature looks really cute, if you gave it a hug, you'd probably die. And that's because crots come from a place called the Middle Ground, a dark and endless void that wipes its inhabitants clean of any identity. And crots will break away from this place to inhabit the realms around them. You should always steer clear of a crot because at any moment they could morph into their defensive form, and this thing will fucking eat you. In fact, your only hope is that when a crot turns into its final form, it loses almost all of its sight and sees things in movement. So if you're moving around a whole bunch, you're super visible to a crot, but if you stay still, you might just survive. So today's lesson is stay the fuck away from crots unless you want to deal with one of these things. So give me a like and a follow, because next episode I'm going to be introducing you to choggos.
Do you think that smoking drugs is cool? Do you think that doing alcohol is cool?
Am I wrong for refusing to pay my sister's bill and giving her information to the restaurant after she ditched me? This happened last night. My sister and her boyfriend recently moved to a town next to mine. I was excited as we'll be able to see more of each other now. Nearby, there's a downtown center that has a lot of shopping, restaurants, galleries, etc. There is one upscale restaurant that both my husband and I love. A dinner for two will run you about $200 to $250, so it's not a place we frequently go to. My sister called me last week and invited us out to dinner with them at the restaurant last night. I reminded her it was an upscale place and to take a look at the menu beforehand because they are pricey and we can go somewhere else, tons of other great places to choose from. She said they still wanted to go. We hadn't been there in a while, so we accepted. Dinner was great. At the end of the meal, my sister excuses herself to the bathroom, and when she doesn't come back relatively soon, her boyfriend goes to find her. After a while, neither of them comes back. We go to check for them and they are gone. I call and text her and she texts me back saying that they've left but thanks for dinner. It was just as amazing as you said it would be. Just learned that my sister, 29 female, had an abortion to be able to donate me part of her liver. It caused her divorce and I can't stop hating myself. I was very sick 4 years ago and was in need of a liver transplant. My situation was that it was very unlikely that I would get one in time. At that time, my sister was pregnant. I didn't know as it was early and she was only 2 months. My situation was getting worse and my sister decided to have an abortion, and then 2 months later, we did the transplant surgery. Oh my god, what a nice sister. I never knew about the pregnancy. All I knew was that she gave me half of the liver. My sister and her husband divorced a year later. I didn't know the truth until yesterday when my mom slipped up about the abortion that my sister had. I asked her about it and she told me everything. She told me that my sister made her promise not to tell me and she failed that promise. My sister was very happy. My brother-in-law was a very decent guy. I knew they were looking forward to having children. They were great together. She always told us about how lucky she is to have found him. Apparently, at the time of their decision, my sister and her husband had great disagreement. He didn't want her to have the abortion and risk the transplant surgery and was hopeful that my situation might.
I have a crush on someone. Now, am I going to do anything about it? Of course not. I mean, why would I voluntarily put myself in a situation where there's only one outcome? And that's me being rejected. So with that being said, I'm not going to talk to him. He's not going to talk to me. And I'm just going to romanticize him in my head while acting out my conversations with him in my bedroom. No, I'm not being delusional. I'm just being smart. Because what's worse? Actually talking to him while looking stupid, or talking to imaginary him while looking crazy? And remember, folks, it's only crazy if someone catches you. So with that, I'm going to proceed with my fake scenarios.
I need some drama in my life because as of right now, I have nothing going on. I have no boyfriend, no enemies, no big bad problems I need to figure out. It's just me and my thoughts, and that gets pretty boring. So I think I want to get into a fight. I just might walk up to some random person and slap the shit out of them. Then it's going down, and I'm not talking about my ass when I twerk the pain away. But tell me, does it seem like I can fight? Because I can, home dog. I'll pull out my Glock and ra-da-da-da. So yeah, no wonder I can't keep a guy for more than a week.
I was raised by parents who believe religiously and just culturally in rigid gender roles. Dad should work, mom should stay home and raise the kids. I'm the only girl and I have 3 brothers. Because of their expectation I would just get married and stay home and raise kids, they never valued my education. They never valued my educational achievements or emphasized things beyond domestic skill. I'm the second youngest, and by the time I was in high school, my 2 older brothers had gone to the college of their choice, with my parents covering full tuition, books, and off-campus apartment and other living expenses. They eventually did the same for my younger brother, and I was told I wasn't allowed to apply for college. I did so in secret and got accepted with a partial scholarship. I didn't tell them I was moving out until a week before I left. With essentially nothing, the only things I had were things my friends had given to me that their parents bought for them for college. I took engineering and had to work, take on a debt, and struggle. My parents and I have barely spoken in years. I'm married now and expecting our first child, and they asked to meet up. We met at a park